Ros Preston, OBE. I started volunteering when I was about, I suppose, 22 or 23. I'd been married a short while, living in Mill Hill, and a young woman who I hadn't met before came knocking at the door one day, obviously knew I was Jewish, and said, "I'm starting a Wheatso group in Mill Hill, and would you like to become a member?" So I said, of course, my mother had been a Wheatso member. That was the beginning of joining an organisation. I think the big difference was that in that generation, my generation, not many of the women worked. So we were home, we had our babies, but we had time to do things. And I was involved with that charity and all sorts of events and fundraising, and then going to Israel. I became very much involved in everything Israeli. I had the opportunity of being invited in Israel by the World Week to participate in conferences and so on. After I'd been doing that for a while, one of the things that I went to, this is 1975, the United Nations had something called the Decade for Women. The Decade for Women was a matter of three major or four major conferences around the world, all for women, everything to do with women. It also coincided with the fact that at that time the PLO was at its height, fighting against Israel. That was my first major encounter fighting anti-Zionism, anti-Israel, when I was in Nairobi and in Copenhagen. But it was a very good experience, taught me a lot. So after I'd been involved in those conferences, I learned about women from India, women from Africa, women from Sahara and South America, unbelievably difficult lives. And I came back and I said to Ronnie, I now feel I know more about women in Africa and Asia than I do in England. What do I know about the women in England? So I said, I must find out. So I found out about an organisation called the National Council of Women, non-party political, completely democratic, just a women's organisation, which I then joined locally in Istanbul. I must have been at that time, I suppose, in my late 40s. And the women of Istanbul who were members of this group were considerably older than me. So when they saw a young person, they thought, oh, yes, this is just what we need. So in 2 minutes, they had asked me, would I do this? Would I do that? Would I represent them here? So as time went by, I learned a lot. I went around the country speaking and was proposed to various positions and finally became president in 1988. I did that for 2 years. And during that period of time, you get to meet lots and lots of people at all levels, in all parts of the world. Obviously, there are different experiences, which were all learning experiences and very challenging experiences, some of them. And I was involved with the Board of Deputies, with the interfaith work. What happens is, if you're busy in one field and people know about you, they want to see if they can get you interested in what they're doing, which is what happened. So finally, I got a phone call from Chief Rabbi Sachs, who said, Rosalind, I really need to know what women in the community feel, what they think, what they need, what do they want. Yes, I'd like you to take on and do a report for me. Will you think about it? I said, I will think about it. And then I went back to him and I said, Chief Rabbi, there's only one major thing I need to say to you before I start. I've got to be able to go to all Jewish women, not just members of our congregation. If you say yes to that, I'm on. If not, I'm out. He said yes. So what started was 2 years research, 2 years meetings, 2 years setting up groups all around the country. It was really, really exciting and interesting. And we brought out a report for him to hear what Jewish women felt. And then I got the phone call to ask me about JVN. They were just going to start JVN. And I think they wanted somebody who maybe had already had a bit of experience. Would I come along? Would I take a position? Which I said I'd be happy to do because I thought it was a great idea. And there we are. And here we are.